You've been lied to about Scotch whiskey. From older is always better, to never add water, to only single malts matter. Some of the most popular rules in whiskey are simply not true, and the worst part? These myths are costing you money and ruining your experience. Here is the reality. A €30 bottle can outperform a €300 bottle. Adding water can improve flavor, and some of the best whiskey in the world is not even single malt. In this video, we are breaking down 25 Scotch whiskey myths people still believe. By the end, you will know exactly what actually matters and where you should and should not spend your money. Myth 1. Older whiskey is always better. Let's start with the king of all whiskey myths, the one that has probably cost more people more money than any other belief in the world. Think about it like a steak. A perfectly cooked medium rare at 5 minutes is spectacular. But leave that same steak on the grill for 45 minutes and it is ruined. Time alone does not equal quality. What matters is what happens during that time. Whiskey works exactly the same way. Scotch matures in oak casks, and during that time, the spirit is constantly interacting with the wood, extracting vanilla, caramel, spice, and fruit notes. Here's what nobody tells you. That interaction has a ceiling. After a certain point, the wood starts dominating, and the whiskey can become over-oaked, bitter, and tannic. Think of it like steeping a tea bag. 2 minutes, perfect. 20 minutes, undrinkable. A 12-year Glenfarclas or a Springbank 10 can absolutely outperform a 25-year expression from a lesser cask. The quality of the cask, the type of wood, the warehouse conditions, and the climate matter far more than the number on the label. Distilleries in warmer climates actually mature whiskey faster because heat accelerates the chemical reactions between spirit and wood. That is why a 10-year Indian or Taiwanese whiskey can taste like a 20-year Scotch. The truth is, age is a data point, not a guarantee. Do not buy the number. Buy the whiskey. Myth 2. Expensive whiskey always tastes better. Blind tasting studies have repeatedly humbled the whiskey world. In controlled experiments where prices are hidden, experienced tasters regularly rank mid-range bottles above premium ones. This isn't a fluke, it's a pattern. Here's the thing. Price in whiskey is driven by a cocktail of factors, including brand prestige, bottle design, marketing budgets, scarcity, collector demand, and age. Actual flavor quality is only one of those factors, and often not even the dominant one. A bottle with a famous name on the label and a celebrity ambassador can cost a lot more than a lesser-known distillery making the exact same quality spirit. Think about wine. Experts in a famous 2001 study rated a €10 wine higher than a €45 wine when the labels were switched. The whiskey world is no different. A Compass Box Orchard House at around €45 regularly beats expressions 3 times its price in taste panels. Bottles like Glendronach 12, Springbank 10, and Benriach 12 consistently deliver exceptional complexity at reasonable prices. The premium market is also warped by the auction and collector world where bottles are bought as investments, not drinks. A €500 bottle may taste incredible, but it may also be priced that high because of artificial scarcity, not liquid quality. The truth? Set a budget, explore widely, and trust your own palate, not the price tag. Single malt. 2 words that carry enormous status in the whiskey world. People say it like it's a guarantee of quality. It's not. Here's what single malt actually means. Whiskey made from 100% malted barley, distilled at a single distillery. That's it. It says nothing about quality, complexity, or taste. Meanwhile, a blended Scotch is a mix of malt and grain whiskies from multiple distilleries, and in the hands of a master blender, this is an art form of the highest order. Johnnie Walker Blue Label. Chivas Regal 18. Compass Box's entire portfolio. These are blended whiskeys that command serious respect from the most knowledgeable whiskey experts in the world. In fact, blended whiskey makes up over 90% of all Scotch whiskey sold globally, and it didn't get there because people were fooled. It got there because it tastes good. The master blender's job is to find consistency and harmony across dozens of casks and distilleries. That's not a lesser skill than making single malt. It might actually be harder. Think of it like a jazz band versus a solo musician. Both can be extraordinary. Neither is automatically better. The truth: judge the liquid, not the category. Some of the world's greatest whiskeys are blends. Myth 4. You should never add water to whiskey. Never add water, said confidently. Usually by someone who also says no ice, obviously. But here's the thing. Scientists have actually studied this, and the results destroyed the myth. Researchers at Linnaeus University in Sweden published a study showing that adding a small amount of water to whiskey causes guaiacol, one of the key flavor compounds responsible for smokiness and complexity, to migrate toward the surface of the liquid. In plain English, water pushes flavor molecules up, making them more accessible to your nose and palate. Your nose is responsible for around 80% of what you taste. So when you add water, you are not diluting the experience, you are amplifying it. This is why professional whiskey tasters almost always add water. It is not weakness, it is technique. Think of it like letting wine breathe in a decanter. You are not ruining it, you are opening it up. Cask Strength whiskies at 58 to 65% alcohol by volume can be genuinely harsh at full strength. A few drops of water tames the alcohol burn and lets the underlying flavors shine. Even with standard 40 to 46% bottles, a drop or two can unlock aromas that were previously hidden behind the ethanol. The truth: add water if you want. It often makes whiskey taste better. Trust the chemistry, not the gatekeepers. Myth 5. All Scotch whiskey is smoky. This one confuses beginners constantly, and honestly, it's understandable. Whiskey has a reputation for smoke. Smokiness in whiskey comes from peat. Peat is partially decomposed organic material, essentially ancient compressed vegetation that is burned during the malting process to dry the barley. The smoke infuses the grain, and that smoky character carries through into the final spirit. But here is the key: not all distilleries use peat, and in fact, most do not. Regions like Speyside, home to Glenfiddich, Macallan, Glenlivet, and dozens of others, are famous for producing fruity, floral, and honeyed whiskies with zero smoke. Lowland whiskies like Auchentoshan are light, grassy, and delicate. Highland distilleries vary enormously. Some are peated, most are not. If someone told you they do not like whiskey because it is too smoky, they may never have tried a non-peated expression. That is like saying you do not like cheese because you tried blue cheese once and hated it. The truth is, smokiness is a style choice, not a whiskey default. The range of Scotch flavor is far wider than most people realize. Myth 6. Darker color means better quality. Walk into a whiskey shop and watch people hold bottles up to the light. They are looking at color, and they are using it to judge quality. This is one of the most misleading habits in whiskey culture. Here is why. Color in whiskey comes primarily from the type of cask used. Sherry casks produce deep amber and mahogany tones. Bourbon casks produce lighter gold. That is it. A pale, straw-colored whiskey aged in a refill bourbon cask can be extraordinarily complex and delicious. A rich, dark mahogany whiskey can be manipulated because, and this is the part that shocks most people, it is legal for distilleries to add caramel coloring, E150A, to Scotch whiskey. This practice is widespread and entirely above board under current regulations. It is used to ensure visual consistency across batches, so that gorgeous deep amber you are admiring in a bottle may have nothing to do with the cask, and everything to do with a food-grade coloring additive. Color gives you zero reliable information about flavor, age, or quality. The truth: close your eyes and use your nose and palate. The bottle color is marketing, not a quality indicator. Myth 7. Age statements tell you one thing: the minimum number of years the youngest whiskey in that bottle spent in a cask. That's it. It's a legal minimum, not a quality certificate. A whiskey labeled 18 years could contain a beautifully matured spirit from an exceptional cask. It could also contain an 18-year-old whiskey from a poor quality cask that happened to survive long enough to earn the label. The cask type, the fill history, the warehouse, the distillate quality, none of that is captured in the age statement. Think of it like a university degree. Two people can both have a 4-year degree. One spent those years deeply engaged, learning and growing. The other just scraped through. The time invested is the same, the result is not. The truth is, age statements are useful context, not quality guarantees. Always consider the full picture. Myth 8. Non-age statement. Whiskey is lower quality. This is the flip side of Myth 7, and it is equally wrong. Non-age statement whiskeys exploded in popularity over the last decade, partly because global whiskey demand outpaced the supply of aged stock. But many distilleries embraced non-age statement as an opportunity, the freedom to blend whiskey from exactly the right casks, regardless of age, to achieve the best possible flavor. Ardbeg Ogadal, Lafroig Quarter Cask, Highland Park Dark Origins. These are non-age statement expressions that regularly outperform age-stated bottles twice their price in tasting competitions. Master blenders building non-age statement expressions often have more creative freedom. They are not constrained by having to use whiskey of a specific age, and they can find the best casks available. The truth. Non-age statement does not mean young or inferior. Judge the liquid, not the label policy. Myth 9. Cask strength is always better. Cask Strength whiskey, bottled directly from the cask without dilution, is genuinely exciting. Alcohol by volume in the 55 to 65% range, or higher, delivers maximum intensity, nothing held back. It sounds like it has to be better, but it is not always. First, cask strength requires work from the drinker. At 60% alcohol by volume, the alcohol can literally anesthetize your taste buds if you drink it neat. The ethanol overwhelms the flavor compounds you are trying to detect. Paradoxically, adding water to a cask-strength whiskey often produces a better tasting experience than drinking it as is. Second, some expressions are simply crafted to be better at a lower alcohol by volume. Distilleries sometimes choose 46% or 48% as the optimal bottling strength for a specific whiskey's flavor profile. Diluting to that precise point before bottling is a deliberate artistic decision, not a cost-cutting compromise. The truth, cask strength is a tool, not a trophy. The best whiskey is the one that is optimized for its own flavor, at whatever alcohol by volume that requires. Myth 10. Blended whiskey is cheap and inferior. We touched on this in Myth 3, but let us go deeper, because this prejudice genuinely costs people extraordinary experiences. The skill of blending is one of the most demanding in the entire spirits world. Master blenders like Richard Patterson of White and Mackay spend decades refining the ability to combine whiskeys from dozens of casks and distilleries into something greater than the sum of its parts. It is less like cooking a single dish and more like composing a symphony. Every instrument matters, every balance point is deliberate. Blended Scotch whiskey accounts for the vast majority of Scotch sold worldwide. Johnnie Walker alone sells tens of millions of cases per year. The idea that all of this is cheap and inferior is simply disconnected from reality. Blended Scotch spans an enormous range, from everyday mixer bottles to ultra-premium expressions rivaling the finest single malts. The truth. Blended whiskey deserves your respect. Do not let snobbery rob you of great experiences. Islay is famous for peated whiskey. Islay is famous for peated whiskey. Ardbeg, Lafroig, Bowmore, Kilchoman. The island has become synonymous with smoke. But peat is not an Islay exclusive. Highland distilleries like Ardmore and Edredor produce peated expressions. Springbank on the Campbelltown Peninsula makes Longrow, a heavily peated single malt. Aberfeldy, Ben Nevis, and others also work with peated malt. Benromach and Speyside, yes, Speyside, produces a lightly peated whiskey that challenges every regional expectation, outside Scotland entirely. Distilleries in Japan, Australia, and the United States are producing peated whiskies that rival Islay's finest. Peat is a technique, and it travels. The truth is, smoke follows the distiller, not the geography. Myth 12. All Islay whiskey tastes the same. And while we're in Islay, this myth is almost the opposite of the last one, and equally wrong. Islay has 9 active distilleries, and they could not be more different from each other. Brookladdie's Classic Laddie is unpeated, fresh, and coastal, more reminiscent of a light Highland malt than a classic Islay. Bunnahabhain is mostly unpeated and produces rich, nutty, sherried expressions. Cull Ela, even when peated, is light and oily compared to the medicinal intensity of Lafroig. The peat on Islay varies too. Different bogs have different botanical compositions, which affects the character of the smoke. The water sources differ. The cask policies differ. Calling all Islay whiskey the same is like saying all French wine tastes the same because it comes from France. The truth, Islay is a world of contrast. Explore the full range before you judge the island. Myth 13. You can't taste regional differences anymore. The argument goes like this. Global supply chains, shared casks, and corporate ownership have homogenized Scotch. Everything tastes the same now. This is overstated and largely false. Yes, some large producers make consistent, reliable, but somewhat generic spirit, but Speyside still produces predominantly fruity and floral whiskey shaped by its soft water and copper-rich stills. Campbelltown still delivers that distinctive briny, oily, slightly funky character. Island distilleries like Talisker and Jura are shaped by maritime conditions that cannot be replicated inland. Whiskey character is influenced by still shape, fermentation time, cask policy, water, and environment, and these vary enormously across Scotland's distilleries. Regional character is not dead, it's just more nuanced than the simple flavor maps suggest. The truth is, regional differences are real, though not absolute. Explore with an open mind rather than rigid expectations. Myth 14. Whiskey improves indefinitely in the bottle. Once whiskey is bottled, it stops maturing. Unlike wine, which continues to evolve in the bottle due to ongoing chemical reactions with oxygen through the cork, whiskey in a sealed glass bottle is essentially static. The wood interaction, the primary driver of whiskey development, stops the moment the liquid leaves the cask. An open bottle is a different story. Exposure to oxygen causes gradual oxidation, which can subtly change the flavor over time. A bottle that is half empty has more air contact and will evolve, sometimes positively, sometimes not. Most experts recommend finishing an open bottle within 1 or 2 years for optimal flavor. The truth is simple. Sealed bottles do not improve with age. Open bottles change, and not always for the better. Drink your whiskey. Myth 15. You should only drink whiskey neat. This one is whiskey gatekeeping at its most snobbish, and it has no factual basis whatsoever. The Scots themselves have been drinking whiskey with water for centuries. Adding a splash of still water, as we covered in Myth 4, is scientifically proven to enhance flavor. Ice is a matter of personal preference. Yes, extreme cold numbs some aromas, but it can also soften harsh alcohol and make whiskey more approachable, especially in warm weather. Highballs, whiskey over ice with soda water, are enormously popular in Japan and are a completely legitimate way to enjoy great Scotch. Cocktails. Whiskey sours, Rob Roy's, and Rusty Nails are classic cocktails with real heritage in whiskey culture. Using good whiskey in a cocktail is not disrespectful, it is delicious. The truth: there is no correct way to drink whiskey. Drink it the way you enjoy it most. Myth 16. More alcohol always means more flavor. It sounds logical, but it is wrong. Alcohol is a solvent and a carrier for flavor compounds, but above a certain threshold it becomes the dominant sensation and starts suppressing everything else. Drinking a 65% alcohol by volume spirit neat often just tastes like burning, with the nuances buried underneath. This is exactly why tasters add water, to reduce the ethanol dominance and let other flavors emerge. Some of the most intensely flavored, complex whiskeys in the world are bottled at 43 to 46% alcohol by volume. Flavor density is about the distillate quality, the cask, and the maturation, not the alcohol by volume level. The truth: more alcohol does not equal more flavor. Often, it is the opposite. The Glencairn glass, that tulip-shaped vessel that has become the icon of whiskey drinking, costs around €10. It is used by master blenders, distillers, and tasting professionals worldwide. It works brilliantly because its tapered top concentrates aromas toward your nose, maximizing what you smell and therefore what you taste. You do not need an €80 crystal glass. You do not need a hand-blown artisan vessel. You need a glass with a slight inward taper at the top. A simple white wine glass works nearly as well as the finest Glencairn. What you are trying to avoid is a wide tumbler, which disperses aromas rather than concentrating them. The truth is, a decent tulip-shaped glass is all you need. The whiskey matters far more than the vessel. Myth 18. Finishing always improves whiskey. Finishing, transferring whiskey into a second cask for additional maturation, has become enormously popular. Sherry finishes, port finishes, wine cask finishes, rum finishes. It sounds like added complexity equals added quality, but it does not always work that way. When finishing is done well, the secondary cask adds a complementary layer of flavor that enhances the original whiskey's character. But when it is done poorly, often too briefly to have real impact, or with an overpowering cask, it can mask the whiskey's natural character. add artificial sweetness that clashes with the base spirit, or simply produce a muddled, unfocused result. Some critics have noted that finishing has sometimes been used to rescue a mediocre base spirit by drowning it in sherry or wine influence, and effectively disguising problems rather than solving them. The truth: a good finish enhances, a bad finish conceals. The quality of both the base spirit and the finishing cask determines the result. Myth 19. First fill casks are always better than refill casks. First fill casks, casks used for the first time to mature whiskey after previously holding bourbon, sherry, or wine, are highly prized. They transfer more flavor compounds into the spirit because the wood is fresher and more active. Many enthusiasts assume this automatically makes them superior, but distilleries deliberately use a mix of first fill and refill casks. Refill casks, used multiple times, contribute subtler and gentler wood influence, allowing the distillery's own spirit character to shine through more prominently. For lighter, more delicate spirits like those from lowland or lighter Speyside distilleries, a first-fill sherry cask can completely overwhelm the base character. A refill cask might be exactly the right choice. The best whiskeys are often the result of thoughtful cask combinations, not a single type. The truth: first fill is not inherently superior. The right cask for the right spirit is what matters. Myth 20. Older distilleries always make better whiskey. Heritage and history are genuinely romantic parts of the whiskey story, but a distillery founded in 1824 is not automatically making better whiskey than one founded in 2014. Modern distilleries benefit from advances in fermentation science, still design, water treatment, and cask sourcing. Many new craft distilleries are producing exceptional spirits that compete directly with centuries-old institutions. Ardnamurchan, founded in 2014, has earned serious critical acclaim. Dalmunach, Kingsbarns, and others are producing whiskies that challenge the romantic notion that the age of the institution equals the quality of the product. History can be complicated. Some historic distilleries have been bought, sold, and restructured multiple times with significant changes to production methods. The history on the label does not always reflect what is in the bottle. The truth: judge the liquid, not the founding date. Myth 21. You need a trained palate to enjoy whiskey. This is the myth that puts people off whiskey before you have even tried it. The idea that appreciation requires years of training, a specialized vocabulary, and the ability to identify 47 individual flavor notes. The truth is far more welcoming. Your palate, like everyone's, is unique and already capable of detecting an enormous range of flavors from a lifetime of eating and drinking. You do not need to identify dried apricot and Seville orange peel to enjoy whiskey. If you can taste that something is fruity, or sweet, or warming, or complex, you are already doing it right. Professional tasting notes are a communication tool, not a test. They are one person's way of translating a sensory experience into language. Your experience may be completely different and equally valid. The truth: if you can taste and smell, you have everything you need to enjoy whiskey. Myth 22. Beginners should only start with light, smooth whiskey. The advice seems logical. Start mild and work your way up. But it is based on a false premise that whiskeys described as difficult are less enjoyable for beginners. Many people try their first whiskey and fall head over heels for a heavily peated Islay monster. Others find light, delicate whiskeys boring after their first sip and give up. What matters is matching the whiskey to the drinker's actual taste preferences, not following a prescribed beginner progression. Someone who loves intensely flavored food, dark chocolate, and espresso might find Lafroig 10 immediately compelling. Someone who prefers subtle, elegant flavors might love Auchentoshan and 3 Wood from day one. Start with what sounds interesting to you. There are no beginners in preference. The truth is this: begin wherever your curiosity takes you. There is no mandatory whiskey starter course. Myth 23. Everyone should taste the same flavors. The tasting notes on a whiskey bottle are written by one person or a small committee. They are inherently subjective, shaped by that individual's taste memories, cultural references, and sensory biology. Human beings vary significantly in their taste receptor genetics. Some people are super tasters, highly sensitive to bitterness and certain compounds. Others have reduced sensitivity. The same whiskey can genuinely taste different to different people, and both experiences are valid. One person's dried fruit and Christmas cake is another person's sweet wood and vanilla. Neither is wrong. Whiskey culture sometimes pressures people to seek specific flavors or to feel inadequate if they cannot. This pressure is counterproductive. Tasting notes are suggestions, not answers. The truth, your palate is your own. Trust your experience over anyone else's tasting notes. Myth 24. High price equals rarity equals quality. The luxury whiskey market has created a strange triangle: price, rarity, and quality. Many people assume these three things move together. They do not. Rarity drives price, yes, but rarity has nothing to do with how good something tastes. A whiskey can be rare because only 200 bottles were produced. It can also be rare because the distillery closed 40 years ago and stocks are nearly exhausted. In neither case does rarity guarantee an exceptional drinking experience. The secondary market for whiskey has become partly a financial speculation game. Bottles bought and traded as assets, their prices detached from any sensory reality. Meanwhile, consistently excellent whiskeys produced in sufficient quantities, Glendronach, Springbank, Glenfarclas, remain relatively affordable precisely because they are not artificially scarce. The truth, rarity inflates price. It does not create quality. Some of the best value in whiskey comes in abundant, accessible bottles. Myth 25. Your enjoyment depends on how correctly you drink whiskey. There is no correct way to drink whiskey. Not neat, not with water, not from a Glencairn, not slowly, not with reverence, not from an expensive bottle, not from an old distillery, not from a specific region, not while using the right vocabulary, not while following any rule you have ever heard from anyone who told you there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. Whiskey is a drink. It was made to be enjoyed. The Scots who distilled the first whiskey hundreds of years ago were not following Instagram guidelines or consulting a palate training manual. They were making something that tasted good and made them feel something. The entire whiskey world, the snobbishness, the gatekeeping, the culture that tells people they are doing it wrong, runs counter to the fundamental purpose of the drink. Every rule in this video has a legitimate place as a tool. Water can help, good glassware can enhance, and understanding age and cask can guide your choices. But the moment any of these tools becomes a law, it stops being useful and starts being a barrier. The goal is simple: find what you enjoy and drink it the way that makes you happiest. The truth: the only wrong way to drink whiskey is in a way you do not enjoy. So 25 myths. And here is what they all have in common. They were all designed at some point to create a feeling that whiskey is exclusive, that it belongs to experts, connoisseurs, and people with large budgets and trained palates. But whiskey belongs to anyone who is curious enough to try it. Understanding these myths is not just about being right at a dinner party. It changes how you shop. You will stop overpaying for age statements in dark color. It changes how you taste. You will add water without guilt and explore without limits. And most importantly, it changes how you enjoy whiskey, on your own terms, according to your own palate, without anyone else's rules getting in the way. The world of Scotch whiskey is vast, complex, endlessly fascinating, and completely open to you. Not just to the experts, not just to the wealthy collectors, to everyone willing to pour a glass and pay attention. So go explore. Ignore the gatekeepers. Trust your nose. Trust your tongue. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what is coming next. In the next video, we will explore the regions of Scotch whiskey. And did you know there is actually a sixth region, even if it is not officially recognized?